Alright, welcome back. My name is Christopher Fraser, and today we're going to talk about procedural paint jobs for X-Wings and stuff. First, make sure you're using a plain diffuse texture. I went ahead and took the one from Video Copilot Star Pack and used After Effects to key out these red stripes that came with it. So now we got a completely plain texture. Neat. Next, I wanted to preserve all of these yellow stripes here, so I went ahead and created another map just for that, where all the stripes are black and everything else is white. I also went ahead and created a texture map just to outline where those stripes would be if I wanted to add the colors back. Now we can begin. Begin by adding in a Voronoi texture. Now to preview what we're doing, go ahead and add in a mix RGB and plug in your Voronoi texture. Make sure that it's set to multiply. Now this was a little bit too soft looking for me, so I went ahead and added in a converter color ramp. Then you can go ahead and pull in the handles close to make the edge really tight. Next, you can go ahead and change that color in our mix RGB to whatever you want it to be. I went ahead and went with this kind of reddish pinkish color. I thought that looked cool. Now we can go ahead and change the method from Euclidean to something a little bit cooler like Chevy Chev. I'll let you figure out how to pronounce that. And we get these cool blocks. Now I don't really like the linear, so we're going to go ahead and change it to constant. That way we kind of just have a slider to control the threshold for our paint job lines. They're a little bit small for me, so I'm going to set the scale value to something closer to like 0.3 or 0.4. I think that looks a little bit better. And we got ourselves a nifty looking paint job. Next, I want to mirror it. So select your Voronoi texture and make sure you have Node Wrangler enabled, and then hit Control T. And what that's going to do is it's going to add in a mapping node and a texture coordinate node. Go ahead and add a converter vector math node in between the mapping node and your Voronoi texture. This is going to allow us to mirror the texture along the x-axis. Change from add to absolute, and then nothing will happen. That's because you need to take the object output from the texture coordinate node and plug that into the vector input of the mapping node. Now you can see we've got a perfect mirror along the x-axis. This is exactly what we wanted. Nice. Now, if you want to shift the origin of the mirror, you can go ahead and play around with the transform settings in the mapping node. You see you can just change where the center of it lies and what the scale of it is from the center. So that's if you wanted it to be asymmetrical, but in a bit more of a controlled way. Change the scale again to something we're a little bit more happy with. Now, if you want to be able to cycle through different paint job types, change the Voronoi texture from 3D to 4D, and then that gives us our handy little W value here that we can shift around. And then you can see we get brand new paint job styles and designs on our X-Wing. That's pretty cool. Go ahead and change it to something like Manhattan to get this cool little like angular effect. Kind of looks like a Sokotano. Add in a color ramp to change the colors. We could change it to Euclidean again, then we get these cool swoopy curvy patterns in the back. It doesn't have to be a Voronoi texture. Add in a wave texture. And then if you want to have some angular waves but you still want it to be symmetrical, just take your mapping node from the left side of the absolute node and duplicate it and put it on the right side. And then that will allow you to change around your rotation and your location and your scale, but keep it mirrored. Check it out. We got these cool like arrow kinds of patterns going on the X-Wing. I think it looks pretty cool. We can go ahead and change around the distortion. We got some waves. Kind of reminds me of the ocean. Let's change the color to blue because, you know, the ocean. Now, maybe if you're working with some lighter colors, you could change it to overlay instead of multiply. That works really well for that, but don't go too dark with it because that'll create these red artifacts. So I don't want those artifacts, so I'm going to change it to multiply. But first, let's change it to a bit of a deeper blue because I kind of like that one a little bit better. Play around a little bit more with your textures. See, by messing around with the mapping node on the other side of the vector math node with our Voronoi texture, we've got this cool stripy pattern that's got like all these little angular bits and stuff. I think that looks pretty neat. Now remember, we talked about not wanting to have our paint over the yellow bits. So all you got to do is duplicate your multiply node before your paint texture node thing. Take the paint mask and I'm just going to multiply it on top, set that factor all the way up to 1, and then you can see we've masked it out pretty nicely. Now I want to make it a little bit glossier where the paint is. So I'm going to duplicate this multiply node over here. I'm going to plug in the paint texture into the factor input, and then we can change the amount of glossiness that we have there just by adjusting the value in the multiply, or the color 2, I mean. So we can switch over to Eevee now and play around with all of our effects and our paint jobs in real time because that is the magic, ladies and gentlemen, of Eevee. Now you don't have to use any of those textures. I dropped in a noise texture, used a color ramp node, and ended up with this cool kind of camo looking thing. You just plug that into the color part of your paint job instead of using a paint mask, and then you got a cool camo X-Wing. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Make sure to like and subscribe and hit the bell notification to know when new videos come out. And coming up soon are going to be some cool new compositing tutorials, and I'm pretty excited about those. So I hope to see you in the next video. Bye.